Hello, friends. Today I am your storyteller. I hope you will enjoy this story. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so that we can receive your love and support. Now let's begin the story. I never thought fast food would stick with me the way it did. When I first started at Taco Bell in 2018, it was just supposed to be a pit stop, something to hold me over until I found a real job. My name's Ethan Rhodes, and back then, I was 22, broke, and already drowning in bills. College hadn't worked out. I dropped out after a year when tuition and my dad's medical debt started piling up. My mom worked double shifts at a nursing home, and I was too stubborn to let her carry my weight, so I took whatever I could find. Nights at Taco Bell in Reno, Nevada weren't glamorous, but the paycheck cleared and the hours fit my schedule. Plus, I wasn't completely alone. My younger sister Claire worked there too, and somehow that made the grease, the chaos, and the endless drive-through orders feel less like hell. Our manager, Danielle Harper, was the kind of boss you prayed for in fast food. Tough, sarcastic, but fair. She wasn't older than 30, but she carried herself like she had already lived 3 lifetimes. Her patience was thin, but her loyalty was unshakable. If you pulled your weight, she had your back. By that fall, I had already worked enough closing shifts to know the drill. You sweep, mop, scrub the fryer, wipe the counters, stock the sauces, and lock the doors. But there was one night, one I'll never forget, that made me realize not every shift ends when the lights go out. It was a Friday in late September, the kind where the desert heat still lingered even after the sun dipped behind the mountains. Claire and I had been on our feet for 10 hours straight. Orders hadn't stopped all night. Nacho fries, party packs, Baja Blasts, and drunk college kids screaming into the drive-through speaker like it was karaoke. By the time we finally locked the doors at 1:15 a.m., I felt like my skin was coated in a layer of fryer grease I'd never wash off. My back ached, my stomach growled, and my head buzzed with the memory of the headset beeping nonstop. Danielle tossed her headset onto the counter like it had personally offended her. "Jesus Christ," she muttered, rubbing her temples. "If I hear one more person ask me to make it extra cheesy, I'm going to lose it." Claire slumped into a booth, pulling her hair back into a messy bun. "I don't care if I die at 40 from Taco Bell cholesterol," she said. "I'm eating this crunch wrap like it's my last meal." Danielle glanced at me. "Sit, 5 minutes won't kill us." We earned it. So we did. The building was quiet for the first time all night. The hum of the soda machines, the faint clatter of ice settling in the bins, and the occasional shifting of someone's sneakers against the tile were the only sounds. We unwrapped our food like it was some kind of trophy. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. That's when the pounding started. It was sudden, so forceful my first thought was that someone had driven into the glass doors. I jumped, my crunch wrap slipping from my hands. Claire gasped. Danielle was already on her feet, eyes narrowing at the front entrance. A man stood there. He wasn't just drunk, though. That's what I assumed at first. His clothes looked slept in, wrinkled and dirty like he hadn't changed in days. His hair stuck out in uneven tufts, and his eyes, God, his eyes were too wide, like he hadn't blinked in hours. Danielle strode toward the doors, keeping them locked. She raised her voice through the glass. "We're closed!" The man pressed closer, his breath fogging up the window. "Please," he said. "I need to eat. Just real quick." "We're closed," Danielle repeated, firmer this time. He didn't leave. He just stood there, face inches from the glass, staring at her like she wasn't even human. Finally, he whispered, "Let me in." Danielle took a step back. "Sir, I can't do that." "You need to leave." His hands twitched at his sides. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at us. My stomach turned. Something about the way he moved felt wrong. "Come sit back down," Claire whispered. "He's just some drunk." Danielle hesitated, then nodded. We ignored him and went back to eating, though my appetite was gone. I couldn't stop glancing at the doors. He didn't leave. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. He never knocked again, never yelled. He just stood outside, pacing sometimes, wandering into the parking lot, but always coming back. He didn't have a car. He didn't even look like he had anywhere to go. He was just there. "Maybe we should call security," Claire muttered. "For what?" "Loitering," Danielle sighed. We'll finish up, stick together when we leave. It's fine, but it wasn't fine. The way he lingered made me feel like we were in a fishbowl, every move on display. At one point, he drifted toward the bridge down the street, the one that overlooked the canyon. For a second, I hoped he'd keep walking. But no. A few minutes later, he was back, closer than before. By the time we started cleaning, I tried to force myself not to look. We scrubbed the fryer, counted the registers, stocked the sauces. Routine. But every time I passed through the lobby, my eyes betrayed me. He was still there, until he wasn't. I noticed when I went to take the trash out, the lobby windows were empty. The parking lot was still. I froze, scanning the street, the sidewalk, the bridge in the distance. Nothing. I ran to the back. That guy's gone. Danielle looked up from the register. Finally. You sure? Claire asked. I nodded. Yeah, but I didn't see him leave. Danielle grabbed the keys. We'll check outside together before we head to our cars. Don't worry. We climbed the metal stairs to the roof. From up there, you could see everything. The lot, the street, even past the bridge. Nothing. Where the hell did he go? Claire whispered. We finished closing in record time. None of us wanted to linger. But the moment we stepped outside, I felt it again. That creeping sensation of being watched. We hurried to our cars, scanning the shadows the whole way. My fingers clenched around my keys so tight my knuckles ached. Danielle's hands trembled. Claire nearly dropped hers, fumbling with her door. I kept waiting for a noise, a shadow, something. But the night stayed still, empty. That wasn't the only strange thing that happened at that Taco Bell. Years earlier, before Claire started working there, I had another night I can't shake. It was late, just before closing, when a man came in. He was different, excited, almost giddy. He ordered, joked around, said he was in town for something special. I bagged his food, wished him a good night. He smiled. Thanks. Got to fuel up before the jump. I thought nothing of it. Until the next day. The news said a base jumper had died overnight. His parachute failed. He'd landed wrong in the canyon and wasn't found until morning. They said he came from out of state, alone, that he had grabbed food before heading to the bridge. I was the last person to talk to him, the last to hand him a meal. And even though I couldn't have known, even though there was nothing I could have done, I still wonder. If I had said something different, if I had known what he meant by the jump, would it have mattered? Or was he always meant to disappear into the dark? That Taco Bell is gone now, torn down last year and rebuilt 2 blocks away. But I can't drive past that stretch of road without glancing at the canyon, without remembering the stranger's face pressed against the glass or the jumper's last meal. Sometimes when I think about it late at night, I wonder which is worse, the man who left without a trace or the one who never left at all. Story 2. I never thought a road trip snack stop could change the way I looked at the world. I never thought I'd still be replaying one night over and over years later. But sometimes life doesn't give you a choice. I was 23 back then, broke, restless, and convinced that the only way to find myself was to keep moving. I had just quit my job at a furniture warehouse in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I spent my days lifting couches and headboards for 12 hours straight. My girlfriend, Rachel, was the one who suggested we take the drive to Austin, Texas. She said it would be our fresh start. We had some savings, barely enough to cover gas, snacks, and maybe a cheap motel or two. But we didn't care. It was summer, the kind where nights stayed hot and sticky, and the roads never seemed to end. We threw our bags in the trunk of my beat-up silver Toyota Corolla and promised each other we'd just figure it out on the way. We should have stayed on the highway that night. I'm telling you, Alex, we should stop soon, Rachel said, her voice a little hoarse from hours of singing along to the radio. We're making good time, I muttered, squinting at the dark road ahead. The headlights carved 2 weak tunnels through the black. Beyond that, nothing. You've been driving for 6 hours straight, she pointed out. Your eyes are bloodshot. I can literally see the veins. I smirked. Sexy, huh? She gave me a flat look. No. Terrifying, the GPS had rerouted us an hour ago because of a wreck on I-20. Instead of sitting in standstill traffic, we decided to take what looked like a faster back route through rural Alabama. At first, it felt like a good call. Empty roads, no brake lights in sight. But now, past midnight, the emptiness was suffocating. No houses, no gas stations, just endless flat fields and clusters of pine trees. The gas gauge dipped below a quarter tank. My stomach rumbled loud enough to fill the silence. Rachel sat up suddenly. Wait! There a green freeway sign flashed in the headlights. Exit 112. Food, gas, 1 mile. I felt a wave of relief. Finally! God, yes, Rachel muttered. If I don't eat in the next 20 minutes, you're going to have to bury me on the side of the road. The exit ramp curled into what looked like a forgotten town. The streets were narrow, cracked, and mostly empty. Old brick storefronts lined the main road, but almost every window was dark. This place is charming, Rachel said sarcastically. I slowed down, scanning. The first diner we saw was closed, its neon sign buzzing faintly before going black altogether. A convenience store sat dark too, like it hadn't opened in years. But then we saw it, a glowing purple and pink sign like a lighthouse in the desert. Taco Bell. Open 24 hours. The drive-through menu was lit. Fluorescent lights flickered inside. The parking lot was almost empty except for one rusty sedan parked crooked near the edge. Thank God, Rachel said. I don't care if it's tacos at midnight. I'm starving. I pulled into the lot, though something about how quiet it was made my skin prickle. We rolled up to the drive-through speaker. The intercom buzzed with static before a man's voice cut in, low and rough. Welcome to Taco Bell. Can I take your order? I leaned toward the speaker. Yeah, can we get... But then I froze. Behind the static, behind his words, I heard it. A noise so faint I thought I imagined it. A scream. Muffled, sharp, cut off almost instantly. Rachel whipped her head toward me. Alex, did you? Yeah, I whispered. The intercom crackled again. The man's voice came back. Too quick, too flat. We're closed, Rachel frowned. What? Your sign says open 24 hours. Long silence. Then, the sign's wrong. Leave her hand tightened around my arm. Alex, let's go. But I didn't move. Curiosity or stupidity, I'm still not sure which, made me circle the building instead of leaving. The lobby lights flickered weakly. Through the big front windows, I saw movement, shadows shifting near the soda machine. Rachel hissed, "This is insane. Don't stop, just..." But I was already putting the car in park. 2 minutes, I said. If something's wrong, we can call for help. Or we can die in a Taco Bell parking lot, she shot back. Still, I unbuckled and stepped out. The night air was heavy, damp. The smell of fryer oil mixed with something bitter, metallic. I walked toward the glass doors. That's when a man stepped into view. He wasn't wearing a uniform, just a black hoodie with the sleeves pushed up, tattoos winding down both forearms. His eyes were flat, his expression stiff, like he was playing a role. I knocked lightly. Hey, are you open? He stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment before shaking his head. No, I gestured toward the glowing sign. It says, the sign's wrong. His voice was sharper this time, and then I saw it. Behind him, half hidden near the kitchen, a young woman crouched low. Her eyes were wide, shining with terror. She mouthed something silently. Help me. My blood went cold. The man noticed where I was looking. He shifted, stepping forward, blocking my view. His lips twitched into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You should go, I froze, and then another scream. This one louder roar, echoing from the back of the building. Rachel shouted from the car, panic in her voice. Alex, get in the car! The man's expression snapped into anger. His voice dropped lower. Leave now! I stumbled backward, heart racing, then turned and sprinted for the car Rachel had already climbed into the driver's seat. The second my door slammed shut, she floored it. Tires squealed on cracked asphalt. The Taco Bell shrank in the rear view, but my pulse didn't slow. We drove until the glowing sign disappeared behind the trees. Neither of us spoke for a full minute. Finally, Rachel's voice broke. What the hell was that? I was still breathing hard. I don't know, but someone's in there. We can't just... We are not going back, she snapped. I'm not saying we should, but we have to call someone. She hesitated, then nodded quickly. Yes, police. Right now, we pulled onto the shoulder of the highway where my phone finally found a signal. My hands shook as I dialed 911. I told the dispatcher everything. The scream, the man, the woman behind it. She stayed calm, asked our location, and promised a unit was already nearby. Stay where you are, she said. Officers will check it out. 20 minutes later, flashing blue and red lights tore past us toward exit 112. Rachel and I sat in silence, watching. We couldn't stay away. Both of us knew it. So after 10 long minutes, I turned the car around and drove back, slowly, cautiously. When we pulled into the lot, 3 police cruisers were already there. Their lights washed the empty Taco Bell in red and blue. An officer was leading someone out in handcuffs. It was the man in the hoodie. His face was blank, jaw clenched, like he hadn't lost yet. Another officer guided 2 shaken, tearful employees from the building, a young woman and an older man. Both looked exhausted, terrified. One of the cops walked over to us when he spotted our car. He leaned down to the window. "You the ones who called?" I nodded, my throat dry. He exhaled, shaking his head. "You did good. Real good. Guy tried to rob the place. Knocked 1 employee out cold, had the other trapped in the back. If you hadn't reported it..." He trailed off. Rachel swallowed hard. They're okay? They'll be fine. Shaken up, but alive. The word hit me like a weight. We drove away in silence, the highway stretching out before us again. Neither of us could eat. Neither of us could talk. The glow of that Taco Bell sign haunted me in the rearview mirror until it finally disappeared completely. I think about that night more than I should. About the way the woman's mouth formed the words "help me." About how close we came to ignoring it, to driving off into the dark and never knowing. We didn't save the world. We didn't even save ourselves from the nightmares that followed. But maybe, just maybe, we saved someone else. And that's something I can live with. Story 3, I never thought freedom would feel so heavy. At 18, all I wanted was out. Out of my parents' house, out of the suffocating small-town silence, out of the arguments that shook the walls night after night. My parents loved me in their own ways, but love doesn't stop resentment from festering, doesn't stop words from cutting so deep you start to believe them. By the time graduation rolled around, I had already packed half my life into 2 duffel bags, so I left. I drove 10 hours south from Springfield, Missouri, and landed in Lubbock, Texas, a city that felt like it was always buzzing even at 2 a.m., a city that didn't know my name, didn't care where I came from. It wasn't comfortable, but I wasn't looking for comfort. I was looking for space. The first few months were messy. New city, no real friends, and bills stacking faster than my paycheck. My lifeline became social media, late nights scrolling through Facebook groups, adding anyone within 20 miles who seemed remotely interesting. That's how I met Maya, a 20-year-old who lived on the west side of town. Maya was the kind of girl who carried chaos like perfume, always laughing too loud, smoking too much, living like tomorrow didn't exist. She was magnetic, and I was desperate for someone who made me forget how alone I really was. We became inseparable. If I wasn't crashing on her couch, she was knocking on my apartment door with a case of beer and a half-baked plan to hit some dive bar. The nights blurred into smoke, cheap liquor, and music loud enough to drown out our thoughts. At the time, I was dating Ethan, a guy I had met my first week in Lubbock. At first, he seemed perfect. Tall, charming, always checking in on me. But that charm soured quick. He didn't like Maya, didn't like me going out, didn't like when I didn't answer his text within 5 minutes. He always masked it as caring, but I knew deep down it was control. Still, I ignored the red flags because the alternative, being alone again, terrified me more. Maya worked nights at a Taco Bell on 34th Street. The place was open until 3 a.m., usually dead after midnight, except for the occasional drunk customer stumbling through the drive-thru. I got into the habit of hanging out there while she closed. I'd sip free sodas, scroll my phone, maybe help wipe tables when she got behind. It was one of those nights, quiet and dragging, when he walked in. It was just past midnight. I was sitting in the corner booth, nursing my 3rd Dr. Pepper, when the bell above the door jingled. A man stepped inside. He was massive, easily 6 feet 4 inches, broad-shouldered, wearing a frayed green army-style coat that looked 2 decades old. His beard was thick, gray, and uneven, hanging down past his chest. His boots clomped against the tile floor, leaving faint mud tracks behind. He didn't look around, didn't order, didn't speak. Just shuffled to a booth across from me and sat down. Instantly, my stomach tightened. Something about him was wrong, not obvious wrong. He wasn't shouting or staggering like a drunk, but there was a heaviness in the air now, a weight that made me sink deeper into my seat. I pulled out my phone and shot a text to Maya behind the counter. Creeper alert, big guy in the coat, sitting across from me. Her reply came fast. I see him. Yeah. He's giving off weird vibes. Want me to say something? I typed back, nah, maybe he'll just leave. He's not ordering. I tried to bury myself in my phone, but the urge to glance up was overwhelming. Each time I did, I found his eyes, dark, unblinking, locked on me. My throat tightened. After a few minutes, Maya, being braver than me, walked over. Sir, you need to order if you're staying inside, she said firmly, though her voice carried a nervous edge. The man didn't reply. He just stood, walked slowly to the counter, and dropped a wad of crumpled bills on the counter. Without a word, he grabbed the paper cup Maya slid toward him and returned to the same booth. He didn't fill his drink. He didn't eat. He just sat there, staring. By 1:15 a.m., the store was spotless. Maya leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone. I was pretending to be on mine, but kept stealing glances. The man hadn't moved. Maya, I whispered across the room. He's still watching me. Her eyes flicked up. Yeah, I see it. Let's head out early. Screw it, I stood, tossing my cup in the trash. Maya grabbed her bag. As we walked toward the exit, I heard it, the scraping of a chair on tile. My chest tightened. I turned slightly. The man was standing now, his coat swaying as he started toward us. Shit, Maya muttered under her breath. Don't run. Not yet, I whispered. Just walk normal. We pushed through the doors into the cool night air. The parking lot was mostly empty, a lone flickering light above us. My car was parked near the back. Maya's apartment was only a block away. Where are we going? Maya asked. Your place. It's closer. We quickened our pace. Then behind us, the jingle of the Taco Bell door opening again. Run, I hissed, and we did. Our sneakers slapped against the cracked pavement as we bolted down the street, cutting behind the building toward the apartments. My lungs burned, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Then, my phone buzzed. At first I ignored it, but another buzz came, then another. I risked a glance. It wasn't a call, it was a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. James R., no profile picture, no friends. The message read, "Don't run. Wheels are faster than legs." I nearly tripped. Another message came through immediately. "I know where you both live." Attached were photos of us. One of me walking my dog in the park 2 weeks ago. One of Maya at the mall. One of us together sitting outside a coffee shop. My stomach dropped into ice. And then, your name is my full name. Your address is my apartment number. Your school is my university. My vision blurred. My breath came ragged. Maya, he's been watching us. For weeks, headlights flared behind us. A white van rolled slowly from the Taco Bell lot. It's him, I screamed. The van's engine revved, creeping closer as we sprinted. The apartment complex was in sight now, just across the street. Maya's keys jangled in her hand. We hit the stairs 2 at a time, but Maya stumbled, crashing to her knees. Get up! I yanked her arm. She scrambled up, panic written across her face. The van screeched to a stop at the base of the building. A door slammed. Heavy boots pounded against concrete. Keys, I shouted. Hurry! I can't. My hands. Her fingers shook violently, fumbling the keyring. I shoved my hand into her grip, twisting until the right key slid into the lock. The knob turned just as the man's shadow loomed at the bottom of the stairs. We shoved the door closed behind us, barely in time. His boot slammed against it, wedging through the crack. We pushed with everything we had. Go! I screamed, slamming my shoulder against the wood. With one last shove, the door clicked shut. The deadbolt locked. Outside, silence. Then, laughter. A deep, rasping laugh that clawed its way under my skin. Maya was crying, dialing 911 with trembling hands. I pressed my back against the door, listening. Thud, thud. Heavy footsteps moving along the side of the building. Then faintly, "Come out, come out. I love when they play hard to get." My chest seized. "He's circling the house," I whispered. We bolted to the hallway closet, cramming ourselves inside, holding our breath. The air was thick, hot, suffocating. Glass shattered in the living room. Maya bit down on her fist to stifle a scream. The footsteps grew louder. Closer, his voice, low and grating. "You can't hide from me. I've been waiting for this." Something crashed to the floor. My heart hammered so violently I thought he could hear it. Then, sirens. Red and blue lights flared through the thin blinds. Shouts followed. Boots on the stairs. The closet door flung open. "Police!" Hands up. I nearly collapsed in relief. They found him in the living room, knife in hand, duct tape and rope bulging from his coat pockets. Out in the van, they discovered more. Zip ties, chloroform, and a notebook filled with names, addresses, and photos of women. Some of the names were crossed out. We were lucky. Too lucky. That night changed everything. I moved out of Lubbock within a month. Maya quit Taco Bell and cut all her social media accounts. I never spoke to Ethan again. Even now, years later, I can't walk into a Taco Bell without my stomach turning. I still feel his eyes sometimes, watching from across the room, waiting. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I swear I still hear that laugh. Story 4. I never thought much about ghost stories. If you'd asked me back in 2018, I would have laughed and told you the only thing scary at Taco Bell was mopping grease off the floor at 2 in the morning. But that was before my last summer working there. The summer when I learned some places don't close just because the doors are locked. I was 21 that year, stuck in a kind of limbo. My friends had all left our little corner of Louisiana, either off to college, the military, or moving to bigger cities. I stayed behind in Lafayette, living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment above an auto shop and taking community college classes at night. Rent wasn't cheap, and between tuition and gas for my beat-up Toyota Camry, I needed a steady paycheck. That's how I ended up at Taco Bell on Johnston Street, working late shifts that nobody else wanted. The pay wasn't glamorous, but I liked the rhythm of closing shifts. By 1:30 or 2 a.m., the chaos would calm, the music from the lobby speakers felt softer, and there was a kind of eerie peace in knowing I was one of the few people awake while the whole town slept. I worked with a rotating cast of coworkers, but that summer my main partner was Eli Martinez. He was a year older, tall and wiry with a sarcastic sense of humor. Eli had grown up in Lafayette but talked constantly about leaving. He wanted to move to Austin, join a band, actually live life, as he always put it. "Man, one more year of this and I'm gone," he'd tell me, slamming the fryer basket into hot oil. "I'm not about to die making crunch wraps for drunk frat boys." I'd laugh, but truth was, I felt the same. It was a Thursday night in mid-July, humid as hell, the kind of sticky heat that clings to your clothes even at 3 a.m. We'd had a rush around midnight, college kids, some construction workers grabbing food after a long shift, a couple who argued about nacho cheese so loudly Eli had to step in. But by 2:40, the lobby was spotless. The grills were cooling, and I was already counting the minutes until I could drive home. "Bet you $10, Eli said, leaning against the counter. Someone pulls up at 2:59 and orders 50 tacos. "Don't curse us," I groaned. He smirked. "You know it's gonna happen." I grabbed a rag, wiping down the soda machine. The headset on my ear beeped suddenly, sharp, loud. My shoulders tensed. "See?" Eli pointed. "What did I tell you?" "Welcome to Taco Bell," I said into the mic. "What can I get for you tonight?" Silence. I frowned, glancing at the grainy black and white monitor that showed the drive-through lane. A car sat at the speaker box, headlights dim, engine idling. The driver's window was rolled up. "Whenever you're ready," I tried again. Nothing. Eli wandered over, chewing on a straw. "They drunk?" "Don't know." "They're not answering." The car just sat there humming. Then with a slow mechanical whir, the driver's window rolled down. My breath caught. The driver's seat was empty. I blinked hard. "Eli, look." He leaned closer. "What the hell? Maybe they're slumped over?" I suggested, though my voice shook. But no, there was no one. No movement. Just an empty seat under the yellow glow of the parking lot lights. The car began to roll forward, smooth as if someone were pressing the gas. It glided up to the first window, the payment window, where customers normally hand over cash. 3 knocks, sharp, hollow, against the glass right in front of me. Eli jumped back, nearly dropping his headset. "What the?" I froze. My hand hovered over the window latch. Against my better judgment, I slid it open just a crack. The car idled inches away, empty, no driver, no passenger. But in the reflection of the glass, I caught it. A pale face in the back seat, hollow eyes, a grin stretched too wide. I gasped, stumbling backward. "Eli, someone's in the back!" He lunged toward the monitor. "Where?" I pointed, but when we both looked again, the seat was empty. The car rolled forward, unhurried, before turning toward the exit. By the time it reached the street, it was gone. Eli yanked off his headset, pale as paper. "We're closing." Now we finished in record time, every sound amplified. The buzz of the freezer, the hiss of mop water. When we finally locked the doors, my chest was still tight. The next day I told myself I imagined it. Maybe I was exhausted, maybe a shadow tricked my eyes, but deep down, I knew better. That Friday, I wasn't scheduled, but I drove back anyway, parked across the street at a dark gas station. At 2:50 a.m., my eyes were locked on the drive-through lane. At 2:55, headlights. The same car, same make, same faded paint. It rolled up to the speaker box, window up, engine quiet. I leaned forward, stomach in knots. Through the windshield, I swore I saw a figure in the back seat, not moving, just watching. The car didn't stay long. It drifted past the windows and out into the street, vanishing like smoke. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next week, I kept waiting for Eli to bring it up, but he never did. On Monday, he told me he was moving in with his cousin in Dallas. By Thursday, he was gone. Me? I lasted another month before quitting. Found a job at a grocery store. Less pay, but I never worked past midnight. And yet, sometimes when I'm driving late, I'll pass by an empty fast food lot. A lone car idling by the menu board. No driver, no passenger, just waiting. Story 5. I was 12 the last time I set foot inside a Taco Bell. I'm 18 now and I still refuse to go back. Not because of bad food or rude employees or anything ordinary like that. It was something else. Something I still don't fully understand. Back then, I was living with my mom and stepdad in a small town outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. My real dad had left when I was 9, and mom remarried a couple of years later. My stepdad, Daniel, wasn't a bad guy. Strict sometimes, but he tried. That summer, he and mom were determined to make me feel like part of the family. They dragged me along on trips, cookouts, all of it. That night, we were driving back from visiting Daniel's sister. It was late, a little after 9, and the Oklahoma sky had that heavy, endless darkness you only see outside the city. The highway stretched in front of us, yellow lines flashing like a heartbeat. The radio was playing one of Daniel's favorite songs, some old Fleetwood Mac track, and he drummed his fingers against the steering wheel in rhythm. "You hungry?" he asked suddenly, glancing at me. I shrugged. "A little." "How about Taco Bell?" I hesitated. I'd never liked fast food restaurants. Not because of the food, I'd eat a taco or burrito like anyone else, but the places themselves always made me uneasy. My mom used to say that sensitivity ran in our family. A sixth sense, she called it. She and my grandma swore they could feel when a place carried bad energy, like it had soaked into the walls. I wasn't sure if I believed in all that, but sometimes I did get feelings. Still, I was hungry. "Yeah, sure," I said. Daniel took the next exit, and a few minutes later we pulled into the parking lot of a small Taco Bell. The neon sign buzzed faintly overhead, casting purple and pink light across the asphalt. The inside was packed. The line stretched almost to the door, a low hum of voices filling the air. The smell of seasoned beef and warm tortillas wrapped around me as I followed Daniel in. "Go find us a table," he said. "I'll order." I nodded and squeezed through the crowd. Most of the booths were already taken. Finally, near the window, I spotted an empty table and slid into the seat. I pulled out my phone, scrolling half-heartedly through Instagram. Then, without me noticing when, a boy was sitting across from me. I froze. 1 second, the seat was empty. The next, there he was. He looked about my age, maybe younger. Dark hair, pale skin, a faded gray hoodie. His clothes seemed a little outdated, like hand-me-downs from a few years back. He smiled at me. "Hey." My throat tightened. "Hey." I glanced around, expecting to see his parents nearby, but nobody seemed to be paying attention. No one sat down beside him. No tray of food on the table. He wasn't waiting for anything. Just sitting there, looking at me. "You from around here?" he asked casually. "Yeah, you." He gave a half shrug. "Just passing through." There was something about the way he said it that made me uneasy. His tone was calm, almost too calm, like the words had been practiced. We started talking. Small stuff at first, movies, school, nothing heavy. But as the minutes ticked by, I began to notice something strange. People weren't just glancing at us, they were staring. A woman holding her kid paused mid-step, her brow furrowed. A group of teenagers whispered to each other while looking at our table. I tried to ignore it, forcing myself to focus on the boy. He had this way of talking like he already knew me, like we were old friends catching up. After a few minutes, Daniel appeared by the door, holding a bag of food. "Come on," he called. I pushed my chair back and turned to the boy. "Nice talking to you." He smiled again. "Yeah. See you around." I started toward the door, but something made me turn back one last time. The seat was empty. My chest tightened. Maybe he'd gotten up quickly, but how had I not noticed? I climbed into Daniel's truck, trying to shake it off. But as we pulled out of the lot, I glanced back at the building. There by the window, the boy stood, watching me. He lifted his hand in a small wave. A chill rippled down my spine. I waved back hesitantly, but by the time we passed the next window, he was gone. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked, noticing how tense I looked. "Yeah," I muttered, gripping my phone a little too tightly. We drove in silence for a few minutes, but when we turned past the far edge of the Taco Bell lot, I saw something that made my breath catch. Near the curb was a small memorial. Flowers, candles, a photo framed in glass, and the face staring back from that photo was his. "Stop the truck," I blurted. "What?" Daniel glanced over, startled. "Just pull over." He eased the truck onto the shoulder, frowning. "What's wrong?" My hands were shaking as I pulled up Google on my phone. I typed the Taco Bell's location and the word accident. The first result made my stomach twist. 3 years ago, a boy about 12 had been waiting outside the Taco Bell while his parents ran a quick errand. A speeding car in the lot hit him. He never made it to the hospital. I scrolled down to the photo included in the article. Same pale face, same dark hair, same boy who had sat across from me minutes earlier. The phone slipped from my hands onto my lap. My breath came in short gasps. Daniel gave me a worried look. "What's going on?" "You're as pale as a ghost," I couldn't answer. All I could think about was the way the boy had smiled, the way he had said, "just passing through," the way people in the restaurant had stared at us like I was sitting alone, talking to nobody. Why me? Why did he choose to speak to me? Maybe he was lonely. Maybe he just wanted to feel normal again, if only for a few minutes. Or maybe he was waiting for someone, anyone, to notice he was still there, forgotten in the place where his life had ended. I never went back to that Taco Bell, and I never will. Story 6, I never thought something as simple as a late-night fast food run could change the way I looked at the world. I mean, it's Taco Bell. We're talking cheap tacos, neon signs, and drive-through windows smeared with grease. What's scary about that? Nothing. At least that's what I used to believe. But after what happened 2 months ago, I can't even drive past that place without feeling the hair rise on the back of my neck. It started on a Tuesday night, the kind of day that feels like it lasts forever. Between morning classes at Missouri State and my part-time shift at a 24-hour gas station, I barely had time to breathe. My boss, Joe, kept me late restocking the cooler. By the time I clocked out, it was 11:20 p.m., and my stomach was gnawing at itself. Food. That was all I could think about. And for me, food at that hour meant one thing: Taco Bell on Glenstone Avenue. It was 10 minutes from work, always open late, and had become my guilty comfort. It was part of my routine, something that grounded me in the chaos of juggling school and bills. As I pulled out of the gas station lot, I cranked the radio just to stay awake. The streets were nearly empty, the kind of quiet where every red light feels endless. My stomach growled again, and I laughed bitterly. All right, I'll feed you," I muttered to myself. When I finally turned into Taco Bell's lot, I slowed down almost immediately. Something was off. The parking lot was empty, not a single car. The lobby lights were off. Even the neon sign buzzed faintly, but the interior looked dead. Normally, even if the lobby was closed, the drive-thru was lit up, the menu board glowing like a beacon. But tonight, it looked like the building itself was abandoned. I hesitated. Maybe they closed early, I whispered, but part of me knew that was rare. Taco Bell stretched their hours as long as they could, sometimes even when they were short-staffed. Still, I was starving. I figured it was worth a shot. I rolled up to the drive-thru speaker and leaned toward the open window of my car. "Hello? You guys still open?" For a few seconds, nothing, just static. I sighed, already putting my car into gear, when suddenly, crackle, a voice burst through, low and muffled. The words were impossible to make out, like someone was speaking too close to the mic, their breath pushing against the receiver. I frowned. What was that?" Silence. My hands tightened on the wheel. A part of me wanted to laugh it off. Probably just interference, or some bored teenager messing around. But there was something about the sound of that voice. Too distorted. Too close. I shook my head, deciding it wasn't worth it, and pulled forward, past the first window where you normally pay. Dark, completely empty, no employees, no sound of fryer oil. Then I reached the second window, and that's when I saw him. A figure stood inside, right at the glass. At first, my brain tried to rationalize it. An employee? Someone finishing up late? But as my headlights hit the window, I froze. The person wasn't wearing a uniform. They were wearing a mask, a clown mask. White face, exaggerated red lips, hollow black eyes. The kind you'd see in some low-budget haunted house. And the second my headlights illuminated it, the figure ducked out of sight. My breath caught. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to move. Without thinking, I slammed my foot on the gas, my tires screeching as I peeled out of the lot. My heart hammered so hard I thought I'd pass out. I didn't stop driving until I reached a quick-trip gas station a few blocks away. I parked under the harsh floodlights, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. "What the hell was that?" I muttered. My hands were shaking. A mask. Inside Taco Bell. At midnight. I thought about calling the police. But what would I even say? "Hey, officer, I saw a guy in a clown mask inside Taco Bell." That wasn't illegal. For all I knew, it could have been some idiot employee pulling a prank. But it didn't feel like a prank. It felt wrong. And worse, the way they ducked when they saw me. Like they weren't supposed to be there. Like they didn't want to be caught. I told myself to forget it, to let it go. But I couldn't. That mask stayed with me, the way the black eyes reflected my headlights. The next night, against every ounce of common sense, I went back. This time, the place looked normal. Lobby lights on, cars in the drive-thru. Business as usual. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Almost. When I pulled up to the window, a young woman with a Taco Bell visor slid it open and handed me my drink. She smiled politely, clearly exhausted from the shift. "Hey," I said, hesitating. "Weird question. Were you guys open last night around 11:30? She frowned. "No, we closed early, like around 9. "Why?" I swallowed. My throat felt dry. "No reason. I just thought I saw something here." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" Against my better judgment, I told her. I told her about pulling in, about the dark building, the voice on the speaker, and finally the clown mask. The second I said it, her expression changed. She stiffened. The color drained from her face. "Wait," she whispered. "A clown mask?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. You've seen him?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she glanced over her shoulder, making sure no one else was listening. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping. "You're not the first person." A chill raced down my spine. "What do you mean?" "Couple months ago, some guy came through late at night. Same story. Said the building was dark, heard something on the speaker, then saw somebody in the window wearing a mask. He freaked out and called the cops." My skin prickled. "And?" Her voice grew even quieter. "They checked the cameras. But there was nothing there." I stared at her. "Nothing?" She nodded. "The footage showed an empty store. No one inside. No one at the window. Just his car. I couldn't breathe for a moment." "Look," she said quickly, "I don't know if it's a joke or some homeless guy or what, but the managers don't talk about it, and none of us stay here past closing anymore." I didn't know what to say. I muttered a thanks, grabbed my food, and drove off. That was 2 months ago. I haven't been back since. But sometimes, late at night, I think about it. About the voice on the speaker, about the clown mask in the window, and worst of all, I think about the cameras. What they didn't see. Because if no one was there, then who or what was looking back at me? Story 7. I never thought much about late-night food runs. Honestly, I used to laugh when people said they were creeped out by empty parking lots, gas stations at midnight, or those lonely drive-thrus with one tired kid working behind the counter. To me, they were harmless, bright islands of comfort in the dark. A burrito at 11:45 p.m. wasn't scary, but that was before last winter, before the night that changed the way I see drive-thrus forever. I was 20 then, living in Riverside, Ohio, trying to balance college and my part-time job at a Marathon gas station just off Route 35. Tuesdays were my worst. I had 2 classes during the day, Intro to Psych and English Comp 2, then a brutal 8-hour evening shift at the gas station. By the time I clocked out, I was always bone-tired, sweaty, and starving. That Tuesday in December was no different. The air was sharp with winter. My breath fogged as I walked across the empty lot to my car, tugging my hoodie tighter. My stomach growled so hard it hurt. The thought of microwaving ramen at home felt depressing, and my fridge had been empty since Sunday. So like always, I headed to Taco Bell. It was a routine. 10 minutes away, cheap, fast, comfort food for nights when life felt heavy. Except that night, when I pulled into the lot at 11:30 p.m., everything looked wrong. The place was dead. No cars, no neon glow from the lobby. The drive-thru menu was dark. Normally, even if the dining room closed early, the drive-thru stayed open till midnight. But that night it looked abandoned. I almost turned around. Almost. But my hunger tugged me forward, and I rolled up to the speaker anyway. "Hello," I called, leaning out my window. "You guys still open?" Silence. I sighed, about to pull forward, when the intercom crackled. A voice seeped through, low, muffled, distorted, like someone speaking too close to the mic. The words were impossible to make out. I froze. What was that?" Silence again. The hairs on my arms stood up. I forced a laugh. Probably some drunk messing with the system, I told myself. I started to pull forward, rolling past the first window. Dark, empty. No employees, no sound. Still uneasy, I eased toward the second window, just to confirm no one was there. That's when I saw him. A figure stood just inside, motionless, framed by the glass. For a heartbeat, I thought it was an employee, but then my headlights caught his face. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He was wearing a mask, a clown mask, white with grotesquely painted red lips stretched into a permanent grin, black hollow eyes that seemed to swallow the light. The second my beams hit him, he ducked out of sight. My gut clenched. I slammed the gas and tore out of the lot, tires squealing. I didn't breathe until I was under the bright lights of a speedway station 2 blocks away. My hands shook on the steering wheel. What the hell did I just see? I told myself to forget it, but the next night I got off work early. My stomach led me back, like muscle memory. This time everything looked normal. Cars in line, lights on, the menu glowing. Relieved, I pulled in. When I reached the window, a girl slid it open. She couldn't have been older than me. Brown hair under a Taco Bell visor, tired but friendly. As she handed me my drink, I hesitated. Hey, I said, weird question. Were you guys open last night? Like around 11:30? She frowned. Last night? No, we closed early. Around 9, my stomach dropped. Why? She asked. I swallowed. No reason, just thought I saw something. Her eyes narrowed. Like what? I don't know why I said it. Maybe I wanted confirmation. Maybe I wanted to be told I was imagining things. I pulled through, I admitted, and I swear someone was inside. Wearing a clown mask, her face went pale. She leaned closer, voice dropping. You're not the first person to say that. Cold shot down my spine. What do you mean? Couple months ago, some guy came through late, said the place was dark, but the speaker answered. He swore he saw someone in a mask at the window. He called the cops. They checked the cameras, but she swallowed. There was nothing there. 2 nights later, I worked late again. I swore I wouldn't stop at Taco Bell. Swore I'd just go home. But hunger won. The drive-thru was empty when I pulled in. The building looked closed. My chest tightened. Not again. I told myself I was being paranoid. I drove past the speaker, straight to the window, just for peace of mind, and froze. The window was open, not wide, just cracked. And inside I saw movement, a pale face flickering in the dark. The clown. Before I could react, the window slid wider. A gloved hand reached out, fast, and grabbed my wrist. Hey, I shouted, jerking back. But he was strong. His grip clamped like a vice. He yanked me toward the glass. Panic surged. I twisted, kicking my car door. My other hand fumbled for anything. My keys, my phone. Nothing worked. Desperation took over. I lunged forward and bit his arm, hard. He howled, yanking back. The mask bobbed as he stumbled into the shadows of the kitchen. I floored it, tearing out of the lot with my pulse pounding in my ears. I drove straight to the police station. My hands still shook as I explained what happened, how someone grabbed me through the drive-thru window wearing a mask. 2 officers exchanged a look. One finally said, "Funny thing, you're not the first to report something like this." They drove back with me, checked the building. By then, the place was empty. The manager arrived, unlocking the doors. Nothing inside was disturbed, except for one thing. Blood. A streak of it, smeared along the stainless steel counter under the drive-thru window. The officers swabbed it for DNA, but weeks later when they called me, they said there was no match in the system. I quit my job at the gas station the next day. I couldn't handle being out that late anymore. The nightmares started almost immediately. I'd wake up gasping, dreaming of that mask, of that grip pulling me toward the dark. My boyfriend at the time, Chris, tried to comfort me, but he didn't understand. He thought I was overreacting, that it was just some crazy guy, nothing more. We fought, grew distant. Eventually we broke up. I started therapy. At first I couldn't even talk. I'd just sit there staring at the floor. But over time, the words came. I told my therapist how powerless I felt, how I'd trained in martial arts as a teenager, always thinking I could defend myself if something happened. But when it really did, I froze. She told me surviving was enough, that biting him, escaping, that was fighting back. It didn't feel like it. Months passed. I transferred schools, studying mortuary science. It wasn't my dream, but it gave me a sense of control. Life, death, at least in that space, things followed rules. One afternoon on campus, I ran into Samantha, a girl who'd worked at Taco Bell during that time. She waved me over outside a cafe. "Hey, long time," she smiled. I sat nervous. She could tell. "You still think about it, don't you?" she asked gently. I hesitated, then nodded. "Me too," she admitted. "A lot of us quit after that. No one wanted the late shift anymore." We sat in silence a moment before she said, "You know, you did the right thing. You survived." Don't forget that her words stayed with me. 2 years passed. I met someone new. Alex, a guy who'd worked at Taco Bell too, though not that night. We bonded over the shared trauma of that place, the shadow it cast. Eventually, we fell in love. Married. We promised ourselves something simple. Our kids would never work fast food, never be stuck alone in the dark at midnight, waiting for something inhuman to reach through the window. The police never found him. They told me the DNA went nowhere. No criminal record, no match, as if he'd never existed. Sometimes I wonder if he was real at all. If maybe the mask wasn't hiding a face but something else, something we weren't meant to see. Other nights I lie awake and remember the strength of his grip, the heat of his arm, the way his blood tasted when I bit him. Too real to be a dream, too real to forget. I know I'll never be fully free of that night, but I've learned something since then. Survival isn't always about fighting. Sometimes it's just about making it through, about not letting the darkness swallow you. That man in the clown mask, whoever he was, didn't get me. I got away. And now every time I pass a Taco Bell at night, glowing lonely against the dark, I remind myself of that truth. I survived, and that's enough. Story 8. I never used to believe in strange coincidences. My life was too ordinary for that. I grew up in a small town outside of Columbus, Ohio, the kind of place where Friday nights were spent at high school football games, and the highlight of your week was when the local Dairy Queen stayed open late during the summer. Nothing supernatural, nothing weird, just cornfields, strip malls, and routines that never seemed to change. By the time I was 22, I was balancing my last semester of college with a part-time job at a local fitness center. My schedule was hectic, but I didn't mind. The workouts kept me sane, the classes gave me a sense of purpose, and the job helped me pay off at least some of my student loans. Life wasn't perfect, but it was steady. The night it happened, though, was anything but steady. It was a Thursday evening in mid-October. The air had that crisp bite that always signaled fall in Ohio, and the sky was streaked with pink and orange as the sun went down. My friend Jake was with me. He wasn't much into lifting weights, but he tagged along after work sometimes, mostly to hang out. Jake's parents were out of town for the week, and he didn't have a car at the time, so I offered to drive him back home. But both of us were starving after the gym, and instead of cooking, we decided to grab food. Pizza, I asked as we tossed our bags into the trunk. Jake shook his head. Too long. I'm starving right now. What about Taco Bell? It's cheap, quick, and we don't have to wait. He had a point. The Taco Bell near our side of town was practically on the way to his place. I hadn't been there in a while, but I didn't protest. It was one of those easy choices you don't think twice about. We pulled into the Taco Bell parking lot around 6:30 p.m. The lot was half empty, a few cars scattered near the entrance. The glowing purple and yellow sign buzzed faintly overhead, and the smell of seasoned beef and fried tortillas drifted through the air before we even opened the door. The second I stepped inside, though, something felt wrong. It's hard to explain. The place looked normal at first glance. Plastic booths, neon menu screens, the familiar hum of fryers in the back. But the air felt heavy, almost oppressive, as if someone had turned up the humidity to an uncomfortable level. And it was too quiet. Aside from the faint sizzling from the kitchen, there wasn't the usual chatter of employees or customers. Jake, oblivious, strode up toward the counter, eyes scanning the menu. Man, I'm gonna crush like 6 tacos. You good? He asked, noticing I was lingering by the entrance. Yeah, I muttered, though my stomach twisted strangely. I thought it was hunger, or maybe the aftershock of pushing too hard in the gym. I waved it off and followed him to the counter. As Jake ordered, I felt a sudden wave of nausea. Cold sweat prickled my forehead. I clutched my stomach, muttered something about using the bathroom, and hurried toward the back. The bathroom door creaked loudly as I pushed it open. The room was empty, fluorescent lights flickering faintly. I barely made it to the toilet before I vomited, the sickness hitting me hard and fast. I leaned against the cold tiled wall afterward, gasping for breath, my head swimming. I glanced at my watch. 6:34 p.m. I closed my eyes, resting just for a moment, letting the cool wall steady me. Slowly, the dizziness began to fade. Then came the knocking. Sharp, frantic raps against the door. You okay in there? Jake's voice, muffled and anxious. I frowned. Yeah, I croaked. Just give me a second. I'll be out in a minute. But then his words froze me. You've been in there for hours. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? I've been here for like 5 minutes. No, dude, Jake said, his voice shaking. It's almost 11. We thought something happened to you. My blood ran cold. I yanked my watch up to my face. The hands hadn't moved. It still read 6:34. My heart pounded as I scrambled to my feet, washed my hands quickly, and unlocked the door. When I stepped out, Jake was there, pale and wide-eyed, along with two Taco Bell employees who looked equally shaken. "You were in there 4 hours," one of them whispered. I looked toward the counter. Our food sat untouched. The tacos shriveled, the Baja Blast melted into flat syrup. It didn't make sense. We left in a hurry. Jake barely spoke as I drove him home. I tried to joke about it, to say maybe I'd passed out or maybe my watch had broken, but my words sounded hollow even to me. When I dropped him off, he just said, "Man, I don't know what the hell happened, but don't go back there." Promise me. I nodded, but my hands were trembling on the steering wheel. The drive back to my place was worse than the bathroom. Every passing shadow on the road made me tense. The air felt colder than it should have been. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my stomach was twisting again, not with sickness, but dread. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bathroom door, locked, silent. But I knew something was on the other side. The weeks that followed were uneasy. I stopped going near that Taco Bell. I even drove the long way around town just to avoid the street it was on. But the dread followed me. Jake grew distant too. He started ignoring my calls. When I finally cornered him one night at a mutual friend's house, he admitted something that made my skin crawl. "I've been dreaming about that bathroom," he said quietly, "every night, and it's not empty in my dreams. There's something in there with you, and it's not human." He wouldn't say more. He just walked away. One afternoon, about 3 weeks later, I couldn't resist. I drove past the Taco Bell. The lot was empty. The lights inside were off, but the sign glowed as bright as ever. I parked, my hands trembling, and stared at the darkened windows. That's when I heard it, faint knocking coming from inside. Knock, knock, knock. My chest tightened. I was about to leave when I saw it. A figure in the window, tall, unmoving. Its face, it wasn't right. A blur of shadows and shifting shapes that never fully formed. I bolted back to my car and sped away. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Been thinking about Taco Bell again. You okay?" Before I could reply, another message appeared, from a number I didn't recognize. "It's not over." The words chilled me more than anything else had. Then a notification popped up from Taco Bell's official social media page. A new post. The caption, "Some stories never end." The photo, the inside of the Taco Bell. Empty except for one figure in the corner, facing the camera. Its face a smear of darkness. Story 9. I never thought much about birthdays. In my family, they were always kind of low-key affairs. Cake at the dining table, maybe a couple of relatives stopping by, the same off-key singing every year. It wasn't that my parents didn't care. They just weren't the kind of people who went all out with balloons and banners. So when my 16th birthday rolled around, I didn't expect anything more than the usual. But my friends had other plans. "Come on, Ethan," Marcus had said, shoving his phone in my face between classes a week before. "There's a new Taco Bell opening on Route 14. Grand opening, free drinks, and it's not the same boring pizza place we always go to. We gotta check it out." Jenna, who'd been my best friend since middle school, had chimed in. Exactly. 16 is supposed to mean something. We can at least go out and celebrate like normal people. Not sit around your living room while your mom burns frozen lasagna again. "Hey," I'd said, laughing. "That lasagna's iconic." But I couldn't hide my grin. The truth was, I wanted something different too. Something that didn't feel like just another night in our small Illinois town where the biggest excitement was a new stoplight being installed by the Walmart. So we planned it. After school, just the three of us, me, Marcus, and Jenna. No parents, no siblings, just us, a booth, and greasy fast food to mark the occasion. That Friday night, I remember the air being crisp, the kind of September evening where the sun sets early and the wind carries a chill that reminds you summer's gone. I tossed my backpack in the back seat of Marcus's car, an old Ford Focus that smelled faintly of motor oil, and climbed in. Jenna was already in the front, her hair pulled into a messy bun, laughing at some dumb joke Marcus was making about our history teacher. It felt normal, comfortable, the way it always did with them. When we pulled into the Taco Bell lot, the place was buzzing more than I expected. A handful of cars lined the lot, the bright neon sign flickering like it wasn't quite broken in yet. Through the windows, I could see families, couples, a group of kids in Letterman jackets, all packed into the shiny new restaurant. Inside, it smelled like a blend of seasoned beef and industrial cleaner. The tile floors practically gleamed, and everything felt just slightly too bright, like the lights hadn't had a chance to wear down yet. We ordered our food, 2 burrito boxes for Marcus and me, a quesadilla for Jenna, and grabbed a round table near the window. At first, it was just like we'd pictured it. We laughed about teachers, argued over which Netflix show was best, teased Jenna about her not-so-secret crush on a senior. I remember thinking how good it felt to just exist there. No pressure, no drama, just us. But then I noticed him. Across the room, maybe 3 tables over, sat a man. He didn't fit the crowd. Most everyone there looked like locals, families, students, tired parents. But this man, he stood out. Scruffy hair that hung in greasy clumps around his face, a faded jacket several sizes too big, sleeves fraying at the cuffs. His jeans were ripped, not the stylish kind of ripped, but worn thin, stained, the kind you get from years of hard living. His shoes looked barely held together, duct tape wrapped around one sole. I wouldn't have given him much thought. Small towns always had drifters, but it was the way he was looking at us, or rather at me. His eyes were fixed, unblinking. Not in the casual way someone glances around a room, but in a way that made my stomach knot, like he was studying me. I shifted in my seat, leaning closer to Marcus. "Hey, don't be obvious, but check out the guy by the wall." Marcus, of course, turned his whole head. Subtlety was not his gift. The man's eyes dropped immediately, but it didn't feel embarrassed. It felt deliberate, like he wanted me to know he'd been watching. "Creepy," Marcus muttered, shoving another fry into his mouth. "Probably just high." Ignore him, but I couldn't. Every time I tried to focus on Jenna's story about volleyball practice, my gaze slid back to him. He hadn't moved. He just sat there, shoulders hunched, hands hidden in his sleeves. Eventually, I excused myself. "Bathroom," I said quickly, pushing back my chair. The hallway to the restrooms was quieter than the dining area, the buzz of chatter fading into the hum of a soda fountain. The fluorescent lights above flickered faintly, casting everything in a sterile glow. Inside the men's bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face, telling myself I was being paranoid. People stared sometimes. Maybe I looked familiar to him. Maybe he was just zoning out. But then the sound came. Breathing, slow, heavy, deliberate. I froze, my hands still dripping above the sink. The breathing wasn't coming from one of the stalls. It was too close, too deliberate. Then a voice, low, raspy, male. "I know you're in here." My blood turned cold. I turned slowly, my heart hammering so hard I could barely hear over it. The man was standing by the stall door, half in shadow, his pale face lit by the buzzing light above. His eyes were wide, too wide, locked on me, and in his hand he held a knife. Not a kitchen knife, not some flimsy thing. A long hunting blade, the kind that gleamed even under cheap bathroom light. For a split second, I couldn't move. My brain screamed at me to run, but my legs felt cemented. Then instinct took over. I shoved past him, slamming my shoulder into his chest. His breath exploded in a grunt as I barreled toward the door, my sneakers squeaking against the tile. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. Bursting into the dining area, I sprinted for the counter. "There's a guy in the bathroom. He's got a knife," I gasped, my voice shaking, desperate. The cashier, a girl who couldn't have been more than 19, froze, her eyes widening. Then she grabbed the phone. "Stay here," she said quickly, her voice trembling but firm. "I'm calling the police." Everything blurred after that. People started murmuring, shifting nervously in their seats. Marcus and Jenna rushed over, their faces pale. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Minutes felt like hours until the sirens came. The police stormed inside, moving down the hallway with weapons drawn. I stood frozen near the counter, my heart rattling in my chest. When they came back out, one of the officers met my eyes. His face was grim. He's gone. Gone. I couldn't process it. He'd been right there. He'd cornered me. How could he just vanish? They searched the area, reviewed the cameras, questioned everyone. But somehow, impossibly, there was no trace of him leaving. It was like he'd never existed at all. That night changed me. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat much. I kept replaying it over and over. The stare, the knife, the voice. And then, weeks later, the letter came. Plain envelope, no return address. Inside a single typed line, "You should have stayed away." And in that moment, I knew it wasn't over. No matter how far I ran, no matter how many locks I checked at night, he was still out there, watching, waiting, and I knew deep down he wasn't finished with me.